High above the valley of Ilarion, where the mountains touched the clouds and the forest stretched endlessly into the horizon, stood a mansion so magnificent that people believed it belonged to kings. The mansion was called Valamon Estate. Its walls were carved from rare white stone. Its gardens were filled with flowers that bloomed in every season, and hundreds of servants worked silently within its halls. But despite its beauty, the mansion carried a strange atmosphere. People who entered felt as if they had stepped into another world, a world of power, secrets, and untold history. At the center of this world lived Adrian Valamont. Adrian was 17 years old, and many who saw him for the first time struggled to find words to describe him. He had a face that looked like it had been sculpted by an artist, deep silver blue eyes that seemed to see beyond ordinary things, and dark hair that fell perfectly over his forehead. His presence alone commanded attention. Yet, despite his extraordinary appearance, Adrian lived a life unlike any other teenager. He had never walked through a crowded street. He had never entered a public shop. He had never ridden a bus, attended a party, or spoken casually with someone his own age. The outside world was only something he had read about in books. Everywhere Adrian went, a group of highly trained bodyguards followed him. They stood behind him during walks through the garden, surrounded him during rare visits outside the estate, and watched over him as if he were the most precious treasure in existence. And perhaps, to his family, he was. One evening, inside the grand dining hall of Valamont Estate, Adrian sat across from his parents. The room was enormous, with a ceiling so high that chandeliers hung like floating stars above them. His father, Lord Sebastian Valamont, was a man whose name carried influence across nations. The Valamont family had controlled powerful businesses, political alliances, and ancient organizations for generations. People respected him, but many also feared him. His mother, Lady Isabella Aurelia, came from the legendary Aurelia family, a bloodline known for wealth, intelligence, and connections that reached the highest levels of society. Together, Sebastian and Isabella represented two of the most powerful families in the world, and Adrian was their only son. He has never experienced the real world. Adrian was seated on recliner and stared beyond the estate. He wondered what the world was really. Of course he knew he was really rich with the amount of respect he received, but he was also bored. Not only did he have poor appetite, but he also had insomnia. His family had invited so many chefs and doctors, but it made no difference. "Hey, Dad," he said. His father looked up from his documents. "Adrian, is something wrong?" The young man said confidently. "I want to go to school." Silence filled the room. His mother looked surprised. "School?" "Yes." His father leaned back. "You already have private tutors. The best teachers in the world come here." "I know," Adrian replied. "But I don't want another teacher inside these walls. I want to meet people. I want to understand the world outside." His parents exchanged a glance. For years, they had protected Adrian from danger, but they had forgotten something important. Protection could also become isolation. Finally, his mother smiled gently. "You really have grown." His father remained quiet for a moment before nodding. "Very well, but you will have security." Adrian expected that. "I understand." The following month, the impossible happened. For the first time in 17 years, Adrian Valamont walked through the gates of his family estate as a student. When Adrian arrived at Westbridge Academy, every student stopped and stared. A black car pulled up at the entrance. Several bodyguards stepped out, then Adrian appeared. He could hear whispers, but he was already used to it. Meanwhile, in the quiet town of Willowbrook, far away from the glittering towers of the capital city, lived a girl named Amelia Rose Carter. Amelia was 16 years old, and unlike many students her age, she had never stepped inside a luxurious school building, attended expensive events, or traveled beyond the borders of her small town. Her world was simple. She lived with her parents in a modest two-bedroom house with a small garden in the front. The paint on the walls was slightly faded, the furniture was old but carefully maintained, and the kitchen table where the family ate every meal had been passed down for generations. But inside that small home lived something far greater than wealth. It held love, hope, and dreams. The morning sunlight entered through the curtains as Amelia rushed into the kitchen, holding a letter tightly in her hands. Her parents were sitting at the table drinking tea. "Mom! Dad!" Amelia shouted excitedly. Her father looked up with surprise. "What happened, sweetheart?" Amelia placed the envelope on the table. It arrived. Her mother immediately knew what she meant. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the letter. The room became silent. She read the first few lines, and then her eyes widened. "Amelia?" Her voice broke. "What is it?" her father asked. Her mother looked at their daughter with tears forming in her eyes. "You got in." Amelia covered her mouth. "What?" "You got the scholarship." For a moment, nobody moved. Then Amelia screamed with happiness. "I got it!" She jumped around the kitchen, laughing. "I actually got it!" Her father stood up and hugged her tightly. "We knew you could do it." Her mother wiped away tears. "Your hard work finally paid off." The scholarship was for Aurelius Academy, one of the most prestigious schools in the country, and this was the first time they offered scholarship to student. In fact, she was the first person to win the scholarship. The school was known for producing world leaders, scientists, entrepreneurs, and artists. But there was something that made Aurelius Academy different. Almost every student who attended came from very wealthy families. Their parents owned companies, lived in mansions. They arrived at school in luxury cars. Amelia was different. She came from a small home, a family that counted every expense carefully, but her talent had opened a door that money could not. That evening, Amelia sat with her parents in their living room. The three of them looked at the acceptance letter again and again. "I still can't believe it," Amelia said. Her mother laughed softly. "You said one day you would attend a school where you could learn from the best." Amelia looked around their small home. "I will miss this place." Her parents looked surprised. "You are not leaving us behind," her dad said gently. A week later, the first day of school arrived. She carried a simple backpack and wore a neatly pressed uniform that her mother had carefully prepared. Her parents decided to escort her themselves. They woke up before sunrise. Her mother packed her favorite breakfast. Her father checked the train schedule several times. Together, they walked to the station. The train arrived with a loud whistle. Amelia stood on the platform, staring at it. For years, she had dreamed about this moment. Her father carried her bag. Her mother held her hand. "Are you nervous?" her mother asked. "A little," Amelia admitted. Her father smiled. "Good. It means this matters." They boarded the train and sat beside the window. As the train moved, Amelia watched the familiar streets of Willowbrook slowly disappear. The small houses, the local shops, the fields where she used to play. Then, in the distance, the city appeared. Huge buildings reached toward the sky. Crowded streets filled with people. A world she had only seen in pictures. When they arrived at Aurelius Academy, Amelia stopped. The school was breathtaking. A massive stone building stood behind golden gates. Beautiful gardens surrounded the campus, and students walked through the entrance, wearing expensive watches, designer bags, and carrying the confidence of people who had always belonged there. In fact, just like Adrian, she also drew attention. Well, the very attention you didn't want. You would think that she entered into the wrong room. Unlike other students at Aurelius Academy, Amelia did not arrive in a limousine. She did not have a driver. She did not have expensive luggage. If you really wanted to describe this, you would say that even the cleaners was on a different social status than Amelia. Meanwhile, because of her dressing, no one ever imagined that she was a student. They thought the three were probably some staff checking on their first day to work. So people stopped looking. Only the admission office and very few teachers who knew about the scholarship knew Amelia was a black sheep. For Amelia Carter, every moment was a new discovery. The grand classrooms, the enormous library filled with thousands of books, the beautiful gardens where students gathered after lessons, the advanced laboratories that looked like something from the future. Everything about the academy reminded her that she was no longer in Willowbrook. Amelia Carter had always believed that wealth was divided into two categories, those who had it and those who did not. But after stepping into Aurelius Academy, She discovered that even among the wealthy, there existed an invisible world of ranks, status, and influence, a world she had never imagined. The first thing Amelia noticed was the silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of confidence. The students walking through the academy halls did not rush. They did not look lost. They moved as if the entire school belonged to them. Although every student wore the same elegant navy and silver uniform, there was something different about them. An invisible aura, a sense of importance. Some students carried themselves like royalty. Others walked with the confidence of people who had never heard the word no. Amelia quickly learned that Aurelius Academy was not simply a school. It was a gathering place for the children of the most influential families in the country. There were heirs to billion-dollar companies, children of famous politicians, members of ancient noble families, young prodigies whose parents had shaped entire industries. And even among them, there was a ranking. Everyone knew it. Nobody spoke about it openly. The students with the oldest and most powerful family names were considered the highest. They were called the legacy class, families whose influence had lasted for generations. Then came the elite class, children of modern business leaders, celebrities, and wealthy entrepreneurs. Below them were the affluent class, still extremely wealthy, but without the same level of influence. After admission orientation, Amelia was taken to the student residence. She expected a normal dormitory. She was completely wrong. The apartment assigned to her looked more like a luxury hotel. The entrance had marble floors. The living room had enormous windows overlooking the city. The kitchen contained machines she had only seen in advertisements. There was a refrigerator that displayed the temperature on a glowing screen. A coffee machine with buttons she could not understand. A washing machine that looked like a spaceship. Amelia stood in the kitchen, staring. "How do you even turn this thing on?" She pressed a button. The machine immediately began making a strange noise. Her eyes widened. "Oh no!" She quickly pressed another button. The noise became louder. A few seconds later, a voice came from behind her. "You're trying to negotiate with the washing machine?" Amelia turned around in panic. A girl stood there smiling. She had long brown hair, warm eyes, and a gentle expression. "Sorry," Amelia said quickly. I don't know how to use half of these things." The girl laughed softly. "Don't worry. I didn't know either when I first came here." "You didn't?" The girl shook her head. "My parents had servants at home. I never touched appliances." Amelia smiled. For the first time since arriving, she felt less alone. "I'm Amelia." The girl extended her hand. "I'm Clara Whitmore." Clara was Amelia's roommate. At first, Amelia assumed Clara was one of the extremely wealthy students. After all, she attended Aurelius Academy. But over time, she learned something interesting. Clara was wealthy, very wealthy compared to ordinary people. Her family owned several successful businesses. They lived in a beautiful house. She had attended private schools her entire life, but compared to many students at Aurelius, she was considered lower class. Amelia could hardly believe it. "You mean people here look down on you?" Clara smiled sadly. "Sometimes." "But why?" Clara sat on her bed and looked out the window. "Because here, wealth is not only about money." She paused. "It's about your name." "My family became wealthy only recently. We don't have generations of history. We don't have political connections. We are rich, but we are not powerful." Amelia looked confused. "So they bully you because your family is not rich enough?" Clara laughed quietly. "It sounds ridiculous when you say it like that." "It is ridiculous." Clara looked at her and smiled. "You're different, Amelia." "How?" "You don't understand their rules yet." That night, the two girls sat by the window, looking at the city lights. For the first time, Amelia felt comfortable. She told Clara about her small house, her parents, the train ride, her dream of making them proud. Clara listened carefully. "Your parents sound wonderful." "They are. You know, Amelia, I think you're lucky." "Lucky?" Clara nodded. "Many people here have everything except people who truly care about them." Amelia thought about that. She had always believed she was the poor girl entering a rich world. But perhaps she had something many of them lacked, a family that loved her. After a moment of silence, Amelia noticed Clara's expression changed. You said you were bullied. Clara looked down. Yes. What happened? Clara hesitated. It started when I first arrived. She looked at her hands. Some students would hide my books because they thought I didn't belong. Amelia frowned. They did that? Some would make jokes about my family's background. That's horrible. Clara shrugged. I learned to ignore it. But that doesn't make it okay. Clara smiled slightly. You really are different. Why? Because most people here would ask why I didn't fight back. You asked why they hurt me. Amelia became quiet. She looked around the luxurious apartment, the beautiful school, the expensive furniture. Everything seemed perfect from the outside. But beneath the elegance were invisible battles. People competing for status. People afraid of losing their position. People pretending they were untouchable. One afternoon, after a history class, Amelia was walking through the courtyard when a girl approached her. The girl had golden brown hair, perfectly styled, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had always belonged in places like Aurelius. She smiled warmly. Hi. I don't think we've met before. Amelia smiled back. I'm Amelia. The girl extended her hand. I'm Sophia Laurent. They shook hands. Sophia seemed friendly. So are you new here? Yes, I just started this year. Me too, technically, Sophia replied. Although my family has been connected with Aurelius for years. Amelia smiled politely. They walked together through the courtyard. For a few minutes, the conversation felt natural. Sophia asked about Amelia's favorite subjects. They talked about teachers. They laughed about how confusing the school map was. Amelia began to think that perhaps making friends here would not be as difficult as she feared. Then Sophia asked the question. A question Amelia had quickly learned was common at Aurelius. So, which family are you from? Amelia looked at her. My family? Sophia nodded. Yes. What is your surname? Carter. Sophia repeated it quietly. Carter? Yes. A small pause followed. Sophia's expression changed slightly. It was subtle, almost impossible to notice. But Amelia noticed. The warmth in her eyes faded. Carter, Sophia repeated. Is your family involved in business? Amelia shook her head. No, not really. Sophia tilted her head. What industry are they in? Amelia hesitated. My parents don't own a company or anything like that. Sophia looked confused. But everyone here has some connection. Amelia smiled. Oh. She looked down for a moment. I'm from an average family. The moment those words left her mouth, Sophia's expression completely changed. The smile disappeared. Not dramatically, not cruelly, just enough for Amelia to understand. Oh. Sophia stepped back slightly. I see. The friendliness that had been there moments before was gone. So, you don't have a family business? No. No influential relatives? No. Another silence. Then Sophia forced a small smile. Well, it was nice meeting you, Amelia. Before Amelia could respond, Sophia walked away. Amelia stood in the courtyard, watching her leave. She was not angry. She was not surprised. Instead, she remembered Clara's words. Some people will judge you before they even know you. For the first time, Amelia understood exactly what Clara meant. All students here were interested in was a surname, and to them, her surname meant nothing. Later that evening, Amelia returned to the apartment. Clara was sitting on the sofa reading. You look thoughtful, Clara said. Amelia sat beside her. I met someone today. Oh? She was really nice at first. Clara closed her book. At first? Amelia explained what happened between her and Sophia. When she finished, Clara sighed. That is exactly why I warned you. Amelia nodded. I'm glad I listened. Clara smiled. You didn't tell her? No. Good. Amelia looked out of the window at the city. I thought everyone here would care about achievements. Clara smiled sadly. They just care about what your name can do for them. Amelia became quiet. That night, she looked at her reflection in the mirror. She was still the same girl. The same girl who grew up in a small house. The same girl whose parents took the train with her on her first day. The same girl who once dreamed only of entering this school. But now she understood the world she had entered. Aurelius Academy was beautiful. It was prestigious. It was filled with brilliant minds. But behind the elegance were invisible walls. Walls built from family names, wealth, and reputation. So Amelia decided something. She would not chase anyone's approval. She would simply work harder. The grand hall of Aurelius Academy was always filled with conversations. Students gathered in elegant groups, sitting on expensive furniture beneath enormous crystal chandeliers. Although they were all dressed in the same school uniform, everyone seemed to carry an invisible symbol of their background. Some students attracted attention because of their family names, others because of their wealth, others because of the influence their parents held. Amelia sat at one of the long tables near the windows with Clara and 3 other girls. Their names were Victoria, Elena, and Charlotte. At first, everyone minded their business. Then the atmosphere changed. The conversations became quieter. Students slowly turned their heads. A young man entered. He was tall, strikingly handsome, and carried an expression of complete calm. But what caught everyone's attention was not only him, it was the people walking beside him. Bodyguards. Several highly trained guards surrounded him. They moved with absolute discipline. The entire hall became silent. Amelia looked confused. Why is everyone looking at him? Clara looked toward the entrance. Are bodyguards even allowed inside the school? Victoria, who was sitting nearby, immediately answered. You don't understand. She lowered her voice. That's Adrian. Adrian who? The girl looked at Amelia in disbelief. Adrian Vallemont. The name meant nothing to Amelia, but everyone else reacted differently. Who is he? Amelia asked. Victoria stared toward Adrian. He is the oligarchic elite. Amelia frowned. What does that mean? The girls became serious. It means his family is beyond ordinary wealth. Victoria lowered her voice. His father's family is so wealthy that people say their fortune is greater than some countries. Amelia's eyes widened. That's impossible. That's what everyone thinks until they learn about the Vallemonts. Elena joined the conversation. They have so much power that they don't fear consequences. How much power? Elena hesitated. I heard stories that decades ago, Adrian's grandfather destroyed a government building after a dispute with a president. Amelia looked shocked. Destroyed? Yes. And what happened? The girls exchanged looks. Nothing. Nothing? They didn't challenge him. They sent gifts and apologies. Amelia stared at Adrian. She could not believe what she was hearing. But his mother is not from an oligarch family, Victoria continued. She belongs to one of the 7 most powerful families in the world. 7? Yes. And among those 7, the Aurelia family is considered the strongest. Amelia slowly understood. So both his parents are powerful. Exactly. Victoria looked serious. And there is another reason Adrian is treated differently. What reason? The Vallemont family has always had difficulty having children. In the past, they paid a lot of surrogates, but none was successful. Actually, Adrian was a lucky child. Initially, his dad Sebastian and Isabel had a fleeting affair. And when the Vallemonts discovered that she was pregnant, they all flew into the hospital and insisted that she kept the child. Apparently, I heard there was some kind of agreement between the 2 families. She glanced toward him. Are those stories actually true? Victoria nodded. Certainly. She watched Adrian sit down. Students immediately began approaching him, one after another. They tried to introduce themselves. They tried to start conversations. They tried to gain his attention. But Adrian did not react. He sat quietly, reading a magazine, as if the people around him did not exist. A student nervously approached. Hi, Adrian. A bodyguard immediately stepped forward. Please leave. The student froze. But I just wanted to... Leave! The tone was calm, but it was not a request. The student quickly walked away. More students tried. The result was the same. Nobody could get close. Amelia watched silently. She had spent weeks learning about the hierarchy of Aurelius. She had seen students judged by their family names. She had seen friendships created for connections. But Adrian Valamont was different. He was not trying to climb the hierarchy. He was standing above it. Everyone wanted his attention, and he acted as if nobody was there. Clara leaned toward Amelia. "Now you understand why everyone is staring." But Amelia didn't bother looking. She tried, but she couldn't a thing. Girls were at a distance acting like they were doing something else, but low-key, they were looking for a chance to talk to him. However, just above Adrian's head, a glowing screen appeared, one that only he could see. Startled, he nearly jumped out of his seat, spilling his tea across the table. The sudden movement immediately caught the attention of his bodyguards. "Young master, is everything all right?" one of them asked, stepping forward. Ignoring them for a moment, Adrian stared at the floating screen. "Congratulations, host! The scamming system has been successfully activated." His eyes widened. "Can anyone see this?" His bodyguards exchanged puzzled glances before shaking their heads. "See what, sir?" one replied. Adrian blinked several times, then rubbed his eyes. "I'm probably going mad," he thought. "Too many sleepless nights. Now I'm hallucinating." Before his psychologist and the palace scientists could arrive, Adrian noticed something strange. The screen wasn't just floating there. It seemed to respond to his thoughts. "Can you hear me?" he wondered. "Yes, host." His heart skipped a beat. "What? Are you?" "I am your system, and what exactly do you do?" "I provide rebates on anything connected to Amelia." Adrian frowned. "Rebates?" he thought. "What does that even mean?" "And why would I need anything from you?" he asked aloud. The screen remained silent for a brief moment before new words appeared. "Because I can grant you powers." Adrian let out a dry laugh. "Powers? And what would I need that for?" He immediately tried to dismiss the absurd conversation. Magic didn't exist. Systems didn't exist. Invisible screens that spoke inside people's minds certainly didn't exist. There had to be another explanation. Perhaps someone had developed an advanced psychological weapon. Maybe one of his family's political rivals had found a way to implant hallucinations or interfere with his mind. It sounded unbelievable, but it was still easier to accept than the idea that he was speaking to a magical system. For now, until his psychologist and the scientists ran a check on him, he decided to keep playing along. Adrian sat in silence as the last of the examinations came to an end. His psychologist closed the medical report and smiled reassuringly. "Young master, your mental state appears perfectly normal. There are no signs of hallucinations, delusions, or psychological distress." The scientists reached a similar conclusion. "We performed a full-body scan," one of them reported. "There are no implants, tracking devices, or neural chips anywhere in your body." Adrian frowned. "That's impossible." He opened his mouth to explain about the floating screen. "I've been seeing—" The words caught in his throat. His lips refused to move. He tried again. "There's a—" Nothing. It was as if an invisible force had sealed his mouth. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't utter a single word about the system. The scientists exchanged worried glances. "Young master?" Adrian shook his head. "It's nothing." Once everyone had left, the glowing screen appeared again. "Host is forbidden from revealing the existence of the system to anyone." Adrian stared at the message. "So that's why—" A chill ran down his spine. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't a hallucination. It had just stopped him from speaking. He wondered who is Amelia. He asked his bodyguard to pull up every information on anyone named Amelia. For Amelia, she thought, as long as she stayed on her own, she wouldn't be exposed to trouble. She understood that she was different from everyone else, and she had no desire to compete in their world of wealth and influence. But there was one thing she could not control: her appearance. Amelia was very pretty. In fact, her beauty had always been more of a problem than an asset. Her female cousin, who was well off than her, though not as rich as the students in Aurelius, was enemies with her because she thought Amelia was more pretty. Now in Aurelius, most of the popular boys in the academy began noticing her. At first, Amelia thought they were simply being friendly, but Clara quickly noticed something different. "They are not just being friendly," Clara told her one afternoon. "What do you mean?" "They are interested in you," Amelia sighed. "Common, that's not possible. He was only being polite." Clara smiled. "Polite? You are probably the only person here who would say that. But you do need to be careful," she added. "Students at Aurelius, relationships are not only about feelings, so you have to be sure that whoever you decide to date, their families do not mind you social status." But Amelia wanted none of that. She did not want to be used as a tool in a game played by wealthy families. The girls who once ignored Amelia began watching her, especially after they noticed that some boys who had previously chased them, or who they were interested in, were now interested in Amelia. People investigated her and found out that she was a scholarship student, and the bit of respect she had was gone. Even Victoria, Elena, Charlotte, and others began making comments. Clara avoided talking to her in public because she didn't want to be bullied too. The hostility grew. Then came the day when everything changed. Her name was Seraphina Arclight. She was from one of the 7 great families, a family whose name carried centuries of influence. Seraphina was known throughout Aurelius. Beautiful, elegant, powerful, and extremely proud. Her fiancé, one of the Academy's most admired students, had recently started showing interest in Amelia. Amelia had rejected him immediately. She had no interest in him. But Seraphina did not see it that way. To her, that was embarrassing. One afternoon, Amelia was walking back from the library when she was stopped. Seraphina stood in front of her with several girls behind her. She immediately felt something was wrong. "You really are talented at seduction, aren't you?" Amelia frowned. "What are you talking about?" Seraphina smiled coldly. "Don't act innocent. I honestly don't know what you mean." The girls surrounded her. Amelia quickly realized the situation. She was alone. They were not. "Move," Amelia said. Nobody moved. Seraphina stepped closer. "You came here and thought you could sit in the same table with us?" Amelia remained silent. "I don't care about your scholarship," Seraphina continued. "But knowing your place is important." Amelia looked around. "Don't worry, we took care of the cameras." The smile disappeared from Seraphina's face. "Bring the needles," she ordered coldly. Amelia struggled against her restraints, glaring at the woman. "Don't you dare!" she shouted. "You don't want to face the vengeance of the Valamont family?" She appeared confident, but deep down she was about to pee in her pants. For a moment, the room fell silent. Then the girls burst into laughter. "You actually think the Valamonts would care about trash like you?" one of them sneered. "Stop dreaming." Miles away, Adrian was still sitting alone in his study when the familiar translucent screen appeared before him. New mission: stand up for Amelia. Reward: unlock the ability of omniscience. Adrian froze. Omniscience? Knowing everything? The reward sounded absurd, far beyond anything he could believe. Perhaps this was the perfect chance to test whether it was telling the truth. Without another moment's hesitation, Adrian rose to his feet. "Guards!" The doors swung open almost instantly. "Young master?" "If this really grants me omniscience, then I'll know this system is real." He thought, for the first time since it had appeared, he found himself hoping it wasn't a hallucination after all. He ordered them to step in and make sure they suffered the consequences. The guards were surprised. It wasn't in his nature to care about others. While the girls were trying to hold Amelia down, the door opened. Heavy footsteps approached, one after another. A group of men in black suits entered. Adrian's bodyguard. When Adrian Valamont's bodyguards entered the dormitory, the confidence of the girls who had cornered Amelia disappeared instantly. The bodyguards surrounded them silently. They asked Amelia how she wanted to deal with them. Amelia, thinking they were the school disciplinary committee, asked them to handle it according to the rules. The bodyguards took the needles and immediately pierced it into each girl's skin like they were stitching some fabrics. Amelia stood frozen. She was surprised that the school rules were this terrific. She watched the scene unfold with disbelief. She wanted to run, but her legs couldn't. She watched two girls cry in pain. Finally, she was escorted by the bodyguard to her room. Thoughts ran into her head. Were they going to silence her? But her thoughts were distracted by how polite the guards were. They opened the door for her and even bowed to her. She was alone in the room for a while. Then Clara and her friends came in. Someone knocked on the door. The room became quiet. Clara stood up and opened it. Her expression immediately changed. Standing outside were Serafina and some girls. But these girls' appearance was nothing like they used to be. The arrogance was gone. The confidence was gone. She was bleeding on her skin, and her makeup had gone bad. Clara asked if they ran into some trouble, immediately wanted to call emergency services. But before she could, Serafina and the girls stepped inside, and they ran past her to Amelia. Then something impossible happened. She fell to her knees. Everyone froze. "Amelia!" Her voice shook. "Please forgive me." Each pleading Clara and the girls were shocked and surprised. Serafina Arclight, Lena White, and wait, even Elena Pams, the most proud girls in Aurelius Academy, were kneeling, begging. "I was wrong," Serafina said. Her head lowered. "Please ask Adrian to withdraw." Amelia looked at her in confusion. "What are you talking about?" Serafina's eyes filled with fear. The girls exchanged nervous looks. "We didn't know who you were." Amelia became even more confused. "Who I am?" Serafina lowered her head again. "We are sorry. We promised to offer family shares to you." Her voice became desperate. "Please don't let the Valamonts destroy us." Everyone became silent. Amelia did not understand the meaning. The Valamonts? Why were they talking about Adrian? What power did she supposedly have? She looked at Clara. Clara looked just as confused. "I don't understand," Amelia whispered. Neither did anyone else. Then Charlotte suddenly picked up her phone. "Wait!" Everyone looked at her. "I want to check something." She typed quickly. A few seconds later, her expression changed. "What?" Victoria moved closer. "What did you find?" Charlotte turned the screen toward them. News articles filled the page. Company closures, financial investigations, business collapses, one after another, all connected to the families of the girls standing before them. Elena's eyes widened. "No," Charlotte continued scrolling. "It's not just one family." She looked at Serafina. "The Pams, Arclight, even White too?" Unfortunately, no matter the pleading, the outcome was still the same. Everyone in the school wondered. The girl who arrived on a scholarship, the girl whose surname meant nothing, the girl who came from an ordinary home. But now, powerful families were afraid of her. "Wait!" Victoria slowly spoke. "Are you saying Amelia isn't ordinary?" Nobody answered. Charlotte looked confused. "Maybe she comes from some hidden family." Clara was most excited, like she won some lottery, she teased Amelia. "So all this while, you were indeed playing me." But Amelia shook her head. "No. My family is really poor." The girls stared at her, then at the news, then back at her. Nobody knew what to believe. That night, rumors spread throughout Aurelius Academy. Nobody understood the connection. Some believed Amelia had been hiding her identity. Others believed the Carter family was secretly far more powerful than anyone knew. But the truth was much simpler. Amelia herself had no idea that Adrian had intervened, and if he did, why?
Later that evening, Adrian sat in his study, reviewing everything the Royal Intelligence Network had gathered on Amelia. The more he read, the more amused he became. She's quite something. According to the reports, Amelia had been an absolute menace as a child. When she was 7 years old, one of her uncles had gotten into a heated argument with her father during a family gathering. The next morning, the uncle nearly fainted after discovering a live cockroach crawling out of his bowl of soup. Adrian couldn't help but chuckle. He continued reading. Another report described how, at the age of 9, Amelia had put a tiny pin on her auntie's shoes after her auntie had used the money for Amelia's fees for her personal expenses. Adrian laughed aloud. This girl, There was also the incident involving a cousin who had secretly spiked Amelia's drink, but Amelia, after noticing, had calmly switched the glasses while no one was looking. Adrian closed the file, a smile lingering on his face. His gaze drifted to the translucent screen hovering nearby. There was something else that bothered him. The scam system. He had accepted its rewards, but the name made no sense. It had given him omniscience, technology beyond the current era, and abilities that defied reason. There was nothing scam-like about it. Unless the scam wasn't aimed at him. A slow smile spread across Adrian's face. If the system calls itself a scam, then someone is about to be scammed. He leaned back in his chair, unable to suppress a grin. Somehow, he had a feeling his future with Amelia was going to be far more entertaining than he had ever imagined. Meanwhile, word of Amelia's rescue had spread throughout the academy. Almost overnight, everything changed. Students who had ignored her before suddenly went out of their way to greet her. Some offered to carry her books. Others volunteered to help with assignments. A few even brought her snacks and expensive gifts. The sudden attention left Amelia completely bewildered. Why is everyone being so nice to me? She couldn't understand it. Later that night, Adrian activated his authority of omniscience. In an instant, countless streams of information filled his mind. He instantly could tell what was happening at any part of the world. He could read the minds of bodyguards. He quickly located Amelia. Academy Library, 3rd floor. He dismissed nearly all of his guards. Only one bodyguard remained hidden in the shadows, watching from a distance. He was curious and wanted to meet Amelia in person. After a quiet walk through the moonlit academy, he arrived at the library. Inside, the vast room was silent. Amelia sat alone at a table by the window, surrounded by stacks of books. She was completely absorbed in solving a problem. Adrian walked over and sat across from her. She briefly looked up, gave him a polite nod, then returned to her work. She's focused, Adrian thought. Out of habit, he activated his omniscience, intending to read her thoughts. Nothing. He frowned. Again, nothing. He could read the thoughts of everyone, except Amelia's. His curiosity deepened. His gaze drifted to the problem she had been staring at for nearly a minute. You should find a quotient first, he said calmly. Everything else becomes much simpler afterward. Amelia blinked. She looked at him, then back at the problem. After hesitating for a moment, she followed his suggestion. A few lines later, her eyes widened. It worked. She looked at him with genuine surprise. Thank you. Before long, she began asking him about the other problems she couldn't solve. Each time, Adrian explained them with effortless clarity. What began as a few questions gradually turned into a relaxed conversation. Finally, Amelia closed her notebook and smiled. I'm Amelia. Adrian. She nodded. Nice to meet you, Adrian. There were hundreds of Adrians in the kingdom, so she thought nothing of it. Then he added, Valemont. She froze. Adrian Valemont. Her eyes grew wide. The Adrian Valemont? The feared heir of the Valemont family? After a moment of stunned silence, Amelia couldn't help but ask, Then, why does everyone suddenly think I'm connected to you? Adrian shrugged casually. Perhaps because my guards helped you. But why did they help me? They happened to be passing by. Amelia stared at him for a moment before nodding slowly. Maybe he isn't as frightening as everyone says. If his guards were willing to help a complete stranger, then their master probably doesn't tolerate bullies. Sure, though the bodyguards were a little excessive with the girls, but who knows what those girls might have done to me if they hadn't arrived. She thought as she glanced at Adrian again. And he's incredibly smart. Definitely not the arrogant, useless elite everyone gossips about. Without realizing it, the conversation continued for hours, the quiet library filled with nothing more than whispered voices and the occasional turning of pages. The moment Adrian returned to his private residence, the familiar translucent screen appeared before him. Congratulations, host. First meeting with Amelia completed. Reward granted. Words become law. Adrian stared at the glowing words. Words become law. The name alone sounded terrifying. What exactly does this ability do? The system remained silent. It never explained its rewards. It simply gave them. Adrian looked around the room until his eyes settled on a heavy iron table near the window. Let's test it. He fixed his gaze on the table. Without speaking aloud, he simply thought one word. Split. Nothing happened. Then, crack. The iron table split cleanly down the middle, as though an invisible blade had sliced through it. The two halves crashed onto the marble floor with a deafening clang. The sound echoed throughout the mansion. Within seconds, the doors burst open. His bodyguards rushed inside, weapons already drawn. Young master, what happened? They scanned the room for assassins, explosives, or signs of an attack. Instead, they found Adrian standing calmly beside an iron table that had somehow been cut perfectly in half. One of the guards knelt to inspect it. There are no burn marks, no signs of explosives. It doesn't even look broken. Adrian hid the surprise on his face. I accidentally damaged it during an experiment, he said calmly. There's no danger. The guards looked unconvinced but dared not question him further. If you say so, young master. Adrian gave a slight nod. You're all dismissed. After the room emptied once more, Adrian slowly walked toward the ruined table. He reached down and touched the impossibly smooth cut. His heartbeat quickened. I only thought a single word. In reality, obeyed. For the first time since awakening the system, Adrian felt a genuine shiver run down his spine. Later that evening, Amelia quickly realized that the sudden attention wasn't going away. If anything, it was getting worse. Everywhere she went, people whispered about her. Students who had never spoken to her before suddenly treated her like an honored guest. After thinking it over, she decided to lean into the misunderstanding, explaining that she barely knew Adrian would only invite more questions. Worse, she had heard enough rumors to know that Adrian had countless admirers. The last thing she wanted was to become the target of jealous girls. So, with a perfectly straight face, she began telling people that she was Adrian's very distant cousin. Technically, no one could immediately prove otherwise. Her family wasn't wealthy or influential, but most people simply assumed the Valemont family had countless distant relatives. The lie worked better than she expected. In fact, it made things much worse. Now everyone wanted something from her. The boys hoped she could introduce them to Adrian and help them build connections with the powerful Valemont family. The girls, however, had a different goal. They wanted Adrian himself. Every day Amelia was bombarded with requests. Can you introduce me to Lord Adrian? Can you arrange a meeting? Do you know what kind of girls he likes? At first she politely refused. Then one afternoon, an idea crossed her mind. A slow, devilish smile spread across her face. I could make a fortune. She sought out Clara's friend Elena, the Academy's biggest gossip. I probably shouldn't tell you this. Amelia whispered dramatically. Clara immediately leaned closer. What? I heard Adrian is looking for a future wife. Clara gasped. But he has a test. What kind of test? Amelia lowered her voice. I don't know all the details. I only know he values sincerity more than beauty or family status. And so within the space of a year, he will be monitoring some girl's attitude and the way they manage problem. Exactly as Amelia expected, the rumors spread across the academy before sunset. Within 2 days, almost every noble lady had heard about Adrian's mysterious wife selection. Soon afterward, Fiona approached Amelia. Fiona was one of the girls who had publicly humiliated Amelia months earlier. Amelia smiled sweetly. Perfect. Amelia, Fiona said politely. Could you introduce me to Adrian? Amelia pretended to hesitate. I suppose, but you'll first have to prove your sincerity. Ow! Lord Adrian has been secretly researching an important project. She lowered her voice again. Unfortunately, his parents don't approve of it. They've frozen the funds he wanted to use. Fiona frowned. I could invest in his project. Amelia quickly shook her head. No, it can't come from your family. Why not? Lord Adrian would never accept another noble family's public support. It would embarrass the Valemont family. Fiona nodded slowly. So that's the test. It has to be your own money, Amelia continued. Money that you personally control. I only have $500 million in my personal account, Fiona admitted. I'll try to raise more. Amelia nearly choked. 500 million? She somehow kept a straight face. Lord Adrian isn't interested in how much you give, she said solemnly. He's interested in your willingness to sacrifice. He wants to know how much you're personally willing to contribute. Fiona looked determined. I understand. Oh, one more thing. Amelia leaned in even closer. This must remain absolutely secret. If anyone else finds out, Lord Adrian will immediately return the money and cut off all contact. He hates drawing attention to his family's affairs. I won't tell a soul, Fiona promised. And after 6 months, Amelia added confidently, he'll personally return every contribution. Those words completely erased Fiona's remaining doubts. Over the next few days, Amelia quietly repeated the same story to 4 other girls, and she told them to ensure that they didn't tell a soul, and if they did, their money will be returned immediately. As Amelia walked away from the final meeting, she couldn't stop grinning. Meanwhile, as Adrian was reviewing reports in his study, the familiar translucent screen appeared before him. Congratulations! Amelia has successfully scammed $500 million. Reward granted. Telepathy. Adrian blinked. Then, for the first time in years, he burst into laughter. The sound echoed throughout the room. Outside, his bodyguards exchanged bewildered looks. Did the young master just laugh? I've served him for 12 years, another whispered. I've never even seen him smile. Ever since meeting Amelia, however, Adrian seemed like a completely different person. Still chuckling, he ordered one of his aides. Bring me the surveillance footage from the academy. The recording was delivered within minutes. Adrian watched Amelia's conversation with Fiona from beginning to end. Then he replayed it. And replayed it again. Watching Amelia invent the entire story with a perfectly innocent expression was strangely entertaining. So that's why you're called the scam system, he muttered, shaking his head with amusement. Without another word, he summoned one of his most trusted bodyguards. From this moment onward, you will protect Amelia. Reveal yourself only if her life is in danger. Otherwise, remain in the shadows. Understood, Your Highness. As the guard departed, the screen flashed again. Congratulations. Amelia has successfully scammed $400 million. Reward granted. Teleportation. A warm current spread through Adrian's body as he instinctively understood how to bend space itself. Before he had time to process it, another notification appeared. Congratulations. Amelia has successfully scammed $800 million. Reward granted. Flight. Another. Congratulations. Amelia has successfully scammed $500 million. Reward granted. Ability to breathe in space. And another. Congratulations. Amelia has successfully scammed $700 million. Reward granted. Underwater breathing. Each reward fused seamlessly with his body, as though the abilities had always belonged to him. Telepathy. Teleportation. Flight. The ability to breathe in space. Each one was more outrageous than the last. Adrian leaned back in his chair, unable to suppress a grin. The scam system wasn't rewarding him for deceiving people. He couldn't help laughing again. Who would have thought? My greatest source of power is a mischievous little scammer. He glanced toward the window, wondering what Amelia was doing at that very moment. Adrian found himself eagerly anticipating her next scam. Amelia and Adrian continued meeting in the library. Before long, it became their unofficial meeting place. Studying had become much easier for Amelia. Whenever she got stuck on a difficult problem, Adrian always seemed to know the simplest solution. As the final week of the academic year arrived, the entire academy buzzed with excitement. Summer break was only days away. Amelia, however, had a completely different problem. How am I supposed to take all that cash home? If her parents came to collect her, They would certainly notice how unusually heavy her luggage was. There was no way she could explain carrying billions in cash without frightening them. She immediately called home. "Don't worry about picking me up," she told them. "The academy has arranged transportation for students this year." Her parents accepted the explanation without suspicion. Watching Amelia had quietly become part of Adrian's daily routine, not out of obligation. He simply found her endlessly entertaining. On Wednesday evening, as they packed away their books in a library, Adrian asked casually, "How are you getting home after term ends?" "My parents aren't coming," Amelia replied. "I'll be traveling alone. I could drop you off." Amelia considered it for a moment. Perfect. If people saw her leaving with Adrian, it would only strengthen the rumor that she was connected to the Valemont family. That would discourage anyone from questioning her. "Thank you." On the last day of school, Adrian personally drove her. However, Amelia asked him to stop outside a large shopping center near a major bank. "I have a few things to buy first." In reality, she didn't want Adrian to know where she lived, nor did she want her parents seeing her arrive with the heir to the Valemont family and an entire convoy of luxury vehicles. After saying goodbye, she hurried straight into the bank. Over the previous week, she had collected a total of $2.9 billion. After depositing the money into her account, she immediately invested it. Her plan was simple. She would earn enough profit to return everyone's money within 6 months before informing them they had failed Adrian's test. That way, no one would suffer any financial loss. She still intended to keep everything a secret, even from her parents. Thousands of kilometers away, Adrian quietly smiled. Activating words become law, he whispered. Her investments shall triple. Reality obeyed. Less than an hour later, Amelia stared at her investment account in disbelief. Her portfolio had tripled in value. She rubbed her eyes, then checked again. It wasn't an error. Terrified that the market might suddenly reverse, she immediately sold every position. Moments after the transaction settled, her phone rang. "Good afternoon, Miss Amelia. This is the private banking division. Based on your current assets, we'd like to invite you to become one of our black card clients." After ending the call, she contacted every girl who had entrusted her with money. "I need your account numbers." Several of them sounded excited. "Does that mean we passed Adrian's test?" Amelia feigned confusion. "Test? You know, the wife selection." She blinked innocently. "How did all of you hear about that?" The girls exchanged awkward looks. "I don't actually know the results yet," Amelia continued. "If Adrian tells me anything, I'll let you know." Within minutes, every single contribution had been returned in full. None of the girls lost a penny. That evening, Amelia finally went home. The moment she walked through the door, she hugged both of her parents. "I won the lottery." Her parents froze, then burst into tears. Years of struggling to make ends meet. Years of being looked down upon by wealthier relatives. Years of counting every penny. It was finally over. Not wanting to waste the opportunity, Amelia immediately took them shopping. Inside one of the city's most luxurious boutiques, fate decided to make things interesting. "Well, well," a familiar voice echoed behind her. Jane, her cousin, standing beside an older, wealthy man. Jane looked Amelia up and down before laughing. "What? Did you spend all your scholarship money buying clothes for your parents?" Amelia smiled sweetly. "Oh, is this your new stepfather? Or your boyfriend's father?" Jane's face instantly darkened. "At least he buys me handbags worth $10,000. She glanced at Amelia's parents with disdain. "With parents who earn only $1,000 a month, I'm sure you've never even dreamed of owning something like that." Amelia chuckled. "You sold your dignity for a handbag." She shrugged. "And even then, you still wouldn't earn a quarter of what I have." Jane's expression twisted with rage. Her beauty, her intelligence, her scholarship. Years ago, consumed by jealousy, Jane had even plotted to ruin Amelia's life by drugging her and arranging for compromising videos to be recorded. Instead, the plan had somehow backfired, leaving Jane herself disgraced. She had never understood how. Seeing her companion's eyes linger on Amelia only fueled her resentment. Ignoring Jane completely, Amelia continued shopping with her parents. Her mother repeatedly whispered, "These clothes are far too expensive. We don't need them." Jane, meanwhile, smirked at the sales assistants. "You'd better watch your merchandise. They probably can't afford any of it." The staff remained perfectly professional. Store policy required them to treat every customer equally until payment was made. When everything had been selected, the cashier smiled politely. "Your total comes to $1.5 million. Even several employees secretly wondered whether the young family had made a mistake. Without hesitation, Amelia produced her new black card. "Please charge it." "Approved." Silence filled the boutique. The casually dressed family had just spent $1.5 million without blinking. Jane's face turned pale. Even her wealthy companion looked stunned. Earlier, he had promised Jane a luxury handbag, joking that it might be the most expensive thing she would ever own. After paying, Amelia smiled at the staff. "I'll send you the delivery address later." She then handed each sales assistant a $10,000 tip. Looking directly at Jane, she laughed softly. For some people, $10,000 is a fortune. For others, it's just a tip. Jane stood frozen, unable to say a single word. The day didn't end there. Amelia treated her parents to new hairstyles, tailored wardrobes, and luxury cars. Finally, they purchased a beautiful villa. That evening, as they stood together in their new home, both of her parents quietly cried. For the first time in their lives, they finally felt secure. Without hesitation, Amelia transferred $500 million to each of them. Then she smiled. "I want to invest another $4 billion. Instead of trying to stop her, the three of them sat around the dining table late into the night, excitedly discussing ideas for businesses, investments, and a future they had never dared to dream about. Far away, Adrian was reading through a stack of papers when the familiar translucent screen suddenly illuminated before him. The golden letters shimmered brighter than ever before. "Congratulations, host. Amelia has successfully completed her first investment cycle. Scam system has met the upgrade requirements." A progress bar instantly filled to 100%. The screen flickered. Then the title at the top slowly changed. "Upgraded to investment system." Adrian raised an eyebrow. It evolved. New lines of text appeared one after another. "System upgrade complete. New features unlocked. Future rewards will now be based on Amelia's legitimate investments and wealth creation. The system rewards the host according to the value created through Amelia's financial success." Adrian smiled. This system really wanted him to be her lackey. Following Amelia's windfall, her family decided not to announce their newfound wealth. After discussing it carefully, they invested half of the money into large-scale solar farms, believing renewable energy would only become more valuable in the future. The other half was invested in shares of several major companies. Not content with simply investing, Amelia also used part of her personal savings to launch a hot pot restaurant chain. To everyone's surprise, the business quickly became popular, and before long, she had opened multiple branches. As her family's fortunes improved, relatives who had once distanced themselves suddenly began appearing again. They came bearing smiles, gifts, and warm greetings. It was almost as if the years of neglect had never happened. Among them was Amelia's aunt, Jane's mother, the same woman who had once stolen Amelia's school fees. Behind Amelia's back, she began spreading rumors, claiming that Amelia's family had become arrogant after making money. Amelia heard the gossip. She ignored it. A few weeks later, Amelia's father decided to host a dinner for close friends and relatives. Regardless of what happened in the past, he said, it's only right to maintain some respect. Amelia reluctantly agreed to attend, not because she wanted to, but because she didn't want anyone taking advantage of her kind-hearted parents. She and her parents had also agreed on one thing. No one would know that she won a lottery. Well, which she actually didn't win. As far as everyone else was concerned, their family's wealth came from her scholarship. Throughout the evening, Relatives constantly approached Amelia. My son wants to study at Westbrook Academy. Could you help him get in? My daughter dreams of attending too. You're connected now. Surely you can recommend them. Amelia knew none of their children had grades anywhere near the academy's requirements. Still, she smiled politely and gave them the website for the application. She didn't want people accusing her of refusing to help. Then her aunt stood up. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced loudly enough for everyone to hear, "isn't Amelia being rather selfish?" The room fell silent. Her aunt continued. She had access to such an amazing opportunity, yet she never thought to share it with the rest of the family. Several guests frowned. Before anyone could respond, Amelia calmly stood. She looked toward the restaurant entrance. Security. 2 guards immediately approached. "Please escort my aunt and cousin outside." The room erupted into whispers. Her aunt's face turned red. "How dare you?" Amelia's expression remained cold. "No." She took a step forward. "How dare you? I've already shown more kindness than either of you deserved. I chose not to report your crimes to the police." The smile vanished from her aunt's face. What crimes?" Amelia looked directly into her eyes. "Do you really think I knew nothing?" She began counting on her fingers. "The sleeping pills you mixed into my dinner the night before my entrance examination. So I would oversleep and miss the exam." Her aunt's face instantly turned pale. Then Amelia looked at Jane. "And you? The drink you secretly drugged in an attempt to sabotage me." Jane stumbled backwards. How do you know that?" The guests stared at the pair in disbelief. They had been certain no one had ever discovered the truth. Only Amelia knew. In the past, her parents, blinded by years of family loyalty and filial duty, had refused to believe their own relatives could be so cruel. Amelia continued, "I have evidence. So let me make this very clear. If either of you continues to harass my family, I won't hesitate to hand everything over to the police." The confidence in her voice shattered the last of their composure. Neither woman dared say another word. Security escorted them toward the exit without resistance. As they left, angry murmurs spread through the room. Several guests openly condemned their actions. Others turned their backs on them in disgust. Meanwhile, Clara invited Amelia to her birthday party. Clara's birthday party was supposed to be a simple celebration. But everything changed when people discovered one small detail. The birthday girl was close to Amelia, and Amelia was connected to Adrian Valmont. Within days, invitations that were once limited to Clara's friends suddenly attracted the attention of countless influential families. People who had never cared about Clara before began showing interest. Clara's parents were stunned when they saw the guest list. They had no idea their daughter's roommate had such a powerful connection. "I am very happy you grew up with a modest behavior and wasn't snubbing to your roommate. Who would have known she was connected to the invisible Valmonts?" Clara's mother asked excitedly. Clara nodded proudly. "She never showed off. I only found out later who she really was." Her parents couldn't believe their luck. Their company stocks had already increased tenfold after investors began paying attention to their connection with Amelia. They never imagined that their daughter's friendship would bring them such fortune. When Amelia arrived at the party, the atmosphere immediately changed. She stepped out of a simple-looking Maybach, causing everyone nearby to turn their attention toward her. Compared to the extravagant vehicles around her, her car seemed modest. But everyone knew who she was. Almost immediately, guests surrounded her. Some wanted introductions. Some wanted advice. Others simply wanted to establish a connection. Amelia, however, saw an opportunity. Instead of wasting time with meaningless conversations, she introduced them to her businesses, her hot pot chain, her solar investments, her plans for future expansion. The response was immediate. The very next day, agreements were signed, partnerships were discussed, and investments poured in. Amelia's business value skyrocketed. Her estimated net worth reached an unbelievable $80 billion. Amelia told her parents everything. At first, they were overwhelmed. "We never expected to become this wealthy," her father admitted. They had originally prepared themselves for the possibility of losing money. To them, simply owning a comfortable house, several cars, and enough assets to never return to struggling was already more than enough. They didn't need luxury. They only wanted security. But Amelia had other plans. "Let's move to the city," she suggested. Her parents looked surprised. "Why?" "Because it's safer, and because I don't want us surrounded by people who only appear when we become useful." Her parents eventually agreed. What Amelia didn't know was that someone had already been protecting them. Adrian. Behind the scenes, Sophia and several girls who had bullied Amelia had secretly hired people to kidnap Amelia and her parents. They believed that their downfall all started with Amelia, and so they would all go down together. Besides, they wanted to make it look like an accident. They never expected Adrian's guards to already be watching. The attempt never even reached Amelia. The kidnappers were stopped before they could get close. After learning what happened, Adrian gave one simple order: deal with Sophia and the others. His bodyguards understood. They would make sure those people never threatened Amelia again. A moment later, the system appeared. "Congratulations, host. You have successfully protected Amelia. Reward: indestructible body." Adrian stared at the message. Indestructible? He decided to test it. After dismissing his guards, he picked up a knife and pressed it against his hand. The blade snapped instantly. Adrian looked at the broken knife. Then he took out a firearm. The shot echoed through the room, yet his hand remained completely unharmed. The bullet had flattened against his skin as if it had struck solid steel. For the first time, Adrian truly understood the terrifying level of power the system could grant. Not long after, another reward arrived. This time, the system gave him something beyond imagination. An island. Not an ordinary island. An island filled with mountains of gold, diamonds, rare gemstones, and unknown materials that had never existed on Earth. Using omniscience, Adrian immediately understood their value. These materials could create technology centuries ahead of humanity's current level. Energy systems, advanced weapons, medical breakthroughs, machines beyond imagination. The island alone represented wealth beyond any nation's economy. However, as Amelia's success continued, another problem appeared. Her number of admirers increased. Every time Adrian saw another man approach Amelia, laughing with her and showing interest, he felt an unfamiliar irritation, a strange anger, a feeling he couldn't explain. He didn't understand it. He only knew he disliked it. One day, Amelia went on a date with a man named Justin. When Adrian discovered this, his expression darkened. Before he even realized what he was doing, he had teleported to where she was. Amelia was shocked when she saw him. "Adrian." Before Justin could say anything, Adrian stepped forward. "Leave." Justin looked at Amelia. She opened her mouth, but she couldn't meet his eyes. Something about Adrian's presence made her hesitate. Justin was so scared when he recognized Adrian. He didn't know when he stood and left. Adrian and Amelia sat together. Surprisingly, the conversation felt natural, easy. It was almost as if Adrian already knew everything about her. Of course, he did. But Amelia didn't know that. Hours passed without either of them noticing. One day, during a casual conversation between Adrian's mom and one of her close friends suddenly, her friend asked a question that caught her attention. "How exactly are you connected to some Amelia?" Adrian's mother paused. Curious, she began looking into Amelia's background. The more she discovered, the more fascinated she became. Amelia wasn't someone who had simply been lucky. She had taken every opportunity given to her and turned it into something far greater. A scholarship had become a new path. A small business idea had become an empire. A difficult family situation had become motivation. Adrian's mother found herself admiring the girl's determination. She's clever, resilient, and knows how to survive. A small smile appeared on her face. Deep down, she had already started hoping for something. I wonder, could Amelia and Adrian actually like each other? The thought excited her more than she wanted to admit. Meanwhile, Amelia had begun noticing something strange. Adrian kept appearing at the most unexpected moments. Whenever she met someone who showed romantic interest in her, somehow Adrian would appear. At first, she thought it was a coincidence. But after the third time, she became suspicious. How does he always know? One day, after a business meeting, a young businessman invited her to lunch. Amelia smiled politely. Sure, we can discuss business further. She wasn't worried. As long as they met somewhere public, there was nothing to fear. Besides, everyone already knew she had some kind of connection with Adrian Valmont. No one would dare cause trouble. That night, after finishing her shower, Amelia walked back into her room. She froze. Someone was sitting on her sofa. Adrian. She was so startled that she almost dropped the towel she was holding. What are you doing here? Adrian looked at her calmly. For once, even he seemed unsure how to explain himself. He had used his abilities to know where she was, but he suddenly realized how strange it looked. I wanted to talk. Amelia stared at him. At midnight, in my room, Adrian opened his mouth, then stopped. Before she could say another word, Adrian's arm wrapped around her. Her feet lost balance. Their lips meet. The moment their lips separated, the room fell silent. Amelia looked away, her face slightly flushed. Then, a familiar glowing screen appeared before him. Ding! Congratulations, host. You have achieved your first kiss with Amelia. System upgraded to romance system. Reward granted. All physical attributes doubled. But Adrian barely paid attention to it. His eyes were fixed on Amelia. She was standing there, still trying to understand what had just happened, her expression a mixture of surprise and embarrassment. For some reason, that mattered far more to him than any new ability. Marry me. The words came out so suddenly that Amelia froze. Following